you can use the word come not only to mean to arrive, but also to approach in a kind of aggressive way. So even if you're standing right in front of me and we're arguing, I could say, you come up in my face, but you haven't come from anywhere. You're standing right there. But by inserting that word come, it adds some tension to the exchange. And the example I give you, the Seminole example, oh, for heaven's sake, that's great. Huna the tanabde kamaksmi the wara adepa in my own yard. So you're standing in front of me, and here I am in my own yard, and you have the audacity to say, what am I doing here in my own yard? You should mind your own business. So you can insert come in that way.
Evening.
If any of you can speak African American English as well, there's something similar as well with that particular use of come. So moving on down, I've been picking out words in the language from other languages besides English. And the first list I have here are the African words. And these are extremely interesting because when we identify which language in Africa the words originated from, that gives us an idea of the history and where the captives, the slaves who were stolen out of Africa, brought to America and used their own language to enrich the Creole. And let me say, I see a couple of new faces in our group. Creole languages emerge out of a desperate need to communicate. They did not emerge for Africans to speak to white people. They emerged for Africans to speak to other Africans. So what happens is you look for what linguists call linguistic universals. These are features, not just grammatical, but also semantic, having to do with meaning. The different groups of people speaking different languages have in common. Because if the way I say it and the way you say it is the same, even though it's two different languages, an example would be, what do you call a doorway? Well, in my language, I call it this, but if you translated it, it would mean the mouth of the door. The other person would say, well, in my language, we also call the doorway the mouth of the door. Well, you've got two different languages going on, so four different words, door and mouth, door and mouth. But if you're hearing English as the dominant language all around you, take the English words and just use your way of saying it using those English words. So if people speak different languages but say things in the same way, you're going to keep that. That's something you both have in common. You're going to keep that and you're going to understand each other. There are lots and lots of examples like that. For example, so many African languages translate the word for greedy as having big eyes. Big eye means you are coveting something. You're looking at it, you want it. And there are lots and lots of those, and I'll give some examples of that maybe later on. But here are the African words, and you'll see that so many of them don't come from the Guinea coast. Africa, if you can imagine a map of Africa in your mind, you've got the big bulge at the top and then it tapers down. And where it tapers down, you get into more of the Bantu languages, Kikongo, Kimbundu, and a lot of the Africans taken from there, of course, didn't know any English because these were not areas colonized by English speakers. So they arrived in the Americas and had to pick up Creole when they arrived and were put to work alongside people who knew the Creole and taught it to them. And the speakers of these African languages put their own words into the emerging Creole. So we've got names, of course, like Dembo, plant names, Pinda. Pinda is a very common one. It's used now on the southeast coast of this country for a peanut, which in Africa are called groundnuts. The Creole word for a peanut is a groundnut. You've got so many other words. Pingi, the cooking pot word, is very common because we're doing a lot of recipes as texts. So there are these words from further south in Africa because so many of the captives came from that part of Africa. There's an interesting one, tote, meaning to carry. It's pretty much English now, but this may be an example of a word that is African and English, because even Old English has had a verb, tutian, which meant to carry. So here's another example of if it's already there in one group of people and you say it also in your language, just by coincidence, they sound the same, keep it in the language. It helps to understand. Moving on down, can you scroll down, Wendy, to the Guinea Coast languages? We got a lot. And this is where we can tie in more closely with Sierra Leone and the cultivation of rice. A lot of these languages come from Upper Guinea. And again, you've got a picture in your mind, the map, at least of the northern half of Africa. You've got the bulge part that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean. But about halfway down, it splits into Upper Guinea and Lower Guinea. And these two areas are separate because the place where they come together, which is in the southern part of Liberia, it's very difficult to bring the ships into the coast. There are mangrove swamps along the coast. And so there's a little area that the slave ships would just pass on by and get along the Lower Guinea coast. So from southern Liberia upwards to where the Sahara Desert begins, this is Upper Guinea, and it's sometimes called the Windward Coast. Sometimes you'll hear about the Grain Coast a bit further along. The grain mentioned is rice. And so you'll see in a lot of books, it's called the Rice Coast, and that would take in Sierra Leone and the area to the north and south of it. And that is extremely important in Seminole and Gullah history as far as Sierra Leone is concerned. So let's look at some of these words. BIM. BIM is, it's an idiophone. That's a word, a linguistic word. Think about it. Idio is idea and phone is sound. So it doesn't mean to hit, but it's how you hit. So a buxom bim, and that means I hit him hard. Buntas, that's a word that quite a few of you still know, and it means your butt. Sometimes people call it a bunti. Baba. Baba is an interesting word because it turns up in Creole in Sierra Leone. In Sierra Leone, it only means a little boy. And that's what it means in Vai. In Gullah, it can mean a little boy, but it can also mean brother. The same is true of Tita, which we'll come to a bit later on, which is also Vai. In Creole, it means a little girl. In Seminole, it means a little girl, but it can also mean sister. Bubu may be an African word that has come into English, and there are a few of these. Just to mention a couple, cola, as in Coca-Cola, that is an African word. That's a Timni word. Polly, we call parrots polly parrot, but that is, again, a Sierra Leonean word for a parrot. It's not an English word originally because parrots are not a European bird. Bakra, we talked about earlier on. In all of the sister Creoles to Seminole, it can mean, first of all, a white person, but it can also mean anybody, a black person, who acts in a white sort of way. But in Seminole, it has come to mean anybody who is not a Seminole, whatever you are, whoever you are. Chickabode. Chickabode is, I put seesaw, teeter-totter. It's really not either of those. But that's the closest I could come to. A chickabode is a long plank where you stick one end under a rock or something, and you put another smaller rock underneath it, pushed up to the end, so that it's held in place and you can bounce on it. You can bounce up and down on this flexible plank that's held in place at one end. So that word chica is from Mandinka. Chukla, I'm still working on that one. It means your sweetheart, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. It may be from Fula, but I got to talk to some friends who can speak Fula language. Cuffy. Cuffy is a man's name, and it is from Chui, and a lot of names come from Chui, and they are day names, the day you are born on. There's a set of 7 for men and a set of 7 for women. And Cuffy is one of the male names. I think it's Friday, I'm not sure. Date. Date means not only dirty, but also dirt or soil. But it's another one of these words that sounds like the English word. Hence, all the more reason to keep it. Fili is cornmeal. Jabba, once again, could be English as well, but it could also be Mende. Jug, to stab somebody. Conky. Now, conky is interesting. It's a Twi word. It's a kind of tamal. It's not in Gullah. We had the recipe for this some weeks back. It must have been in Gullah at some time, and they just lost it because there's really no other way that it could be in Seminole. It's in all of the others. It's in Jamaican and Sranan and Creole, and it's all over the place, this particular dish. Kojo, another day name. Kai. Kai is like saying, ow, or wow. It's just an exclamation. Mojo, this is a word that's become part of general English. Nana, Nini, Pom. Pom is another one of these idiophone words that doesn't mean far away by itself. You have to add it to saying far away. So you could say, Ide fawe pom, which would mean he's very far away. Poon. Now, this is another word that could be English. It could be a short way of saying pudding, but poon is also a Timini word for a particular dish. Swanga, tabby, tita, mentioned already. Warmount. Just the war part is Mende, but the mount part is English. All right. Any questions about any of these?
Yeah, I had a question about Walmart.
Uh-huh.
Is that like so you wouldn't just say refer to someone's mouth as a Walmart? Is it used more in like a derogatory, like kind of like yap in English? Like you wouldn't say like I love your yap, right? It's like you only use it in like
yeah, it's kind of rude.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like the word in Spanish there's a word hocico. Okay.
Shit hunter warm up. Stop talking. Okay. All right, let's now go through this recipe for sweet potato greens. And I've included this because this is one of the greens that it is very easy to grow where you live. I grow them every year. I have a lot of palm trees around outside, and every early spring, I go to the supermarket and I buy 10 or 12 sweet potatoes and stick them in the dirt, and they grow, they crawl all the way up, and you can, I grow them because they look kind of tropical. They're not really tropical, but they look sort of tropical and they look nice as a foliage, but you can trim the leaves and cook them as greens, and they're good. So let's go through this recipe in Seminole and talk about it as we go. Ano se huna de sholila greens. All right, that se introduces a small sentence inside a sentence, and you could translate it just as that. I know that. Hana, hana means you. In Seminole, it can be one you or a bunch of you. In other Creoles, it just means a bunch of you. It's only plural, but in Seminole, even one person can be hana. Da means it's something that is happening all the time or right now. So I know say Hannah the surely love greens. So I know that all of you certainly surely love greens in an ongoing way. It's something you do, you love them. Today, Hannah probably could go to the store for buy turnip, either colored, either mustard greens, but how much a Hannah today, remember say them old time people been a fix the sweet potato greens, along with them other kind of greens, because them sweet for yam too. All right. Today, you can, Hannah probably can go to the store. Now there's another duh. What you're going to find in Seminole are lots of words that sound the same, that look the same, but they have different meanings. Duh here, we had duh in the sentence above, duh surely love, but now we've got can go to the store. Duh here means to. So today, y'all can probably go to the store to buy turnips, greens, or else. Now, either means or else collard, or else mustard greens. But how much a Hannah today? How many of you today remember say, can you remember that them old-time people, those old-timers, those old-time people, Bina. Now, Bina is short for bin duh. There's a lot of contractions. So Bina, read it as bin duh. Bin is the past tense. Duh means it's something going on. So they used to fix the sweet potato greens, along with them terracotta greens, along with, as well as those other kinds of greens, because them sweet for yam too, because they are sweet to eat too. Sweet doesn't just mean sugar in Creole, it means tasty. So even if it's got pepper in it, but you like it, you can say it's sweet. Yam, this is an African word. It's hard to pin it down to a particular language because it shows up in quite a few different African languages, but it means to eat. So in the old time, people used to also gather sweet potato greens because they are also very tasty. How Hannah and Papidim, how are y'all? Now the N is it's another one of these words that means two different things. It means and, A-N-D, but it also means future, will. So how Hannah and Papidim, how are you going to prepare them? Early in the year, early in the year. This word for year is a little bit different from the English word because it doesn't have the Y in front. So the word for year in Seminole is ir. It's the same in a couple other Creoles as well. Hannah for go to the market for buy enough sweet potato. Early in the year, y'all go. Now, here, it means to in front of a verb, to run, to jump, to sit, to stand, but it also means must. So, Hannah for go to the market, y'all must go to the market for buy enough sweet potato, to buy. So now in this sentence, we've got two uses of the same sounding word. We've got for go, Hannah for go, you must go to the market for buy, to buy enough sweet potato. Now here, enough doesn't mean enough, it means plenty of, sufficient. sweet potato, sweet potatoes. One of the things about Creole languages generally is that words that sound like the English words they came from don't mean the same as the English words they came from. And this is what would confuse English-speaking teachers who were sent out to the colonies from England to teach Creole-speaking children in Africa and the Caribbean. Because when the children would use a word which to the English teacher sounded like an English word, they wouldn't mean the same thing, but the teacher wouldn't know that. So the kid would get marked wrong. All right. So early in the year, you should go to the market and buy sufficient sweet potatoes, the vegetable, the natural root, just as you find them in the vegetable part of the supermarket. Yams and do too. Yams will do as well. Now, you might think that yams has got an English plural on it, but it actually doesn't, because the Seminole word has the S on it even in the singular. One yams. Yams and do too. Yams will do too, because you can use them in the same way, but the sweet potatoes are better. Them to sell them for people for buy for eat the way them day. Them to sell them, they sell it for people for buy for eat, for people to buy to eat the way them day, the way they are. In other words, you take a sweet potato or a yam home and fix it the way you do an Irish potato. Just eat the sweet potato as a vegetable. Same way like ash potato. Same way like ash potato. Ash potato means an Irish potato, a white potato, as opposed to a sweet potato. Then Hannah and Karen go back home. Then you will, N is will. Kya. Kya means take. It comes from carry, because in an earlier use of English, even native speaking English people, carry didn't mean convey in your arms, but to accompany. You may know an old song called Carry Me Back to Old Virginia. It doesn't mean pick me up and take me to Virginia. It means accompany me back. And in some kinds of rural English in England and Ireland, you will hear people still say carry, meaning accompany. So Hannah and Karen go back home. Here's another little bit of grammar, because you've got two verbs here without a link word. In English, more so in British than American, you probably have to put an and in there. Then you will take them and go back home. But what you can do in Creoles is put a couple of verbs together with nothing in between. So carry 'em go means take it and go back home. But Hannah not going to eat them, but you are not going to eat them. Now, Gwen here is a variant form of N, the future. You'll hear Gwen, N, Guan, different ways of making the future. So I'm putting them in to show you the differences, what we call variability in how we talk. Hana for pit them in the ground for let them grow. You're not going to eat them. You're going to put them in the ground in order to let them grow. Put enough of dirty on top of them, put plenty of, there's that word enough. Again, it doesn't mean enough, it means sufficient. Dirty means soil, dirt. On top of them, put enough earth on top of it, give them water every day, give them water every day, let them grow before Hana begin to pull off the leaf. So let them grow till they start making leaves. By the summertime, enough leaf and none come up out of the ground. By the summertime, sufficient leaves, and remember leaf, you don't make it an English plural, leaves. Leaf can mean leaf or leaves. And done. Now, we've got here a combination of the future N plus the complete action word done. So N done together means will have. Come up out of the ground and spread across the land. They would have come out of the ground and spread across the ground. And now Huna have to pick them, get her up in one basket. And now y'all have to pick them, pick it, gather them, gather it. Now notice that here in the first case, we've got pick them, but in the second case, we've got get a rum with an R in there. Some verbs like geta, which end in a vowel, that requires that the following has an R in front of it. It just makes it easier to say. Hana have to pick them, gather them in one basket. So you're collecting all of these leaves and saving them in a basket. The best for let Hana wait a little bit for they leave them for dark. It's best to let y'all wait a little bit for the leaf them. Now we've got a plural. Leaf them means leaves. For dark, to darken. The more dark, the more good for how Hana fit and try. So the more it is dark, the more it's good for how you are fit and strong. This is a reference to the health benefits of the darker leaves. The darker potato leaves have more of everything than the light new ones. Then we divide them to stretch across the earth. So where or when, you can use way to mean when as well. We divide them to stretch across the earth. When the vines, the potato vines are stretching across the earth, therefore pick the best leaf them. Now, therefore pick the best leaf them is, the da is the be verb, meaning it is. For means must. It's kind of hard to translate exactly word for word into English. It is must pick the best leaves. So it is, you should pick the best leaves. And then it says, not the one when young and green, take the one way more darker. Not the ones that are young and green, take the ones which are darker. Darker is one of the kinds of words, it's an adjective, that does have English grammatical endings. There aren't very many in Seminole, but adjectives is one of them. So you could say dark, darker, darkest, dark, darker, darkest. Wrench them good, pull off the stalk them and chew them, rinse them good, pull off the stalk them, and chew them. Pull off the stalks and throw away them. Left the leaf part, leave the leaves. Get a 1 fist a leaf, gather a handful of leaves, 1 fist a leaf, hold them tight and take 1 sharp knife and begin for greater off the edge of the leaf. So you grip a bunch of these leaves in your fist, and you take a sharp knife and you start to slice them off the side of your fist on the edge of the leaves that are sticking out from your fist, and catch them all into a bowl of water. This is a much easier way of shredding greens. If you're trying to cut them fine, you just grab a tight handful and slice them off the side of your hand as you're gripping it. Okay, into 1 bowl of water. The piece of leaf we have been dug, creep off, enough for 2 lily. The pieces of leaves that you been done. Now here's another double verb construction. Been is past tense, done is completive. So been done means had already, creep off. Enough for 2 lily. The pieces of leaves that y'all have already scraped off, not to be too small, but at the same time, he shouldn't be enough for too big. Now, notice that in English, if you were to say that in English, you would have the be verb in there, because you would say enough for be too lily, but either so enough for be too big. But adjectives in Seminole are verbs, so that lily doesn't just mean small, it means to be small, and big doesn't just mean big, it means to be big. So enough for too big already means it not must be too big. In other words, a reasonable size of cut leaf. Time Hannah had a chop off leaf in 1 bowl. By the time that you'll have the chopped up leaves in 1 bowl, put them in 1 nether pot along with lily water and lily salt and pepper, and put them upon the fire, lay cook a while. By the time that you have the shredded leaves in 1 bowl, put them into 1 other pot along with a little water and a little salt. Salt is salt, and pepper, and put them upon the fire and put it on the stove, the fire. Lay cook a while. Let it cook for a while until the greens are ready to eat. And then it says, Hana today kind of people can like them other thing for pit day. You today sort of people can like those other things to put there, like a soy sauce and thing, like soy sauce and stuff. And if Hana want to turn bakra, and if you really want to become a bakra, the Hana business. That's your business if you want to put soy sauce in your greens. The Seminole way, nama. Nama here means only. Da is for pit lily poke and pepper and salt day with the greens. Let them boil and cook. So the Seminole way only is to put a little pork, a little pepper and salt there with the greens, and to let them boil and cook. Hana yeri me good now. Y'all listen to me good now. Hana nafa eat the ash potato greens them. You are not to eat the white potato greens. They may make Hannah sick. They're gonna make you ill. And that's true. Okay. Another recipe? Any questions about this recipe? All right. Sufki and Toli. Now, Sufki is got to be the national dish of the Seminoles. Sufki, the one that kind of a bittle, we come from the Stachi part of we history. Sufki is one of the kind of a bittle means anything to eat, food. We means which, come from the Istichati. Istichati means Native American, means First Nation people. So this now is something from the Native American part of Seminole history. The Istichati part of we history. Sufki, the Creek word. Sufki is a Creek word. Them call him Osafke. And Darabittle done spread all over the south, so not a we no more where they eat them. That, now Dara is another way of saying that. You could say that or da or Dara, bittle, that food done spread all over the south, has spread all over the south. So nada we no more. It is not us only where to eat them. Deet is the eat joined up. Nada we no more where to eat them. The Cherokee and the Kwasate and the Chickasaw and the Choctaw, them all, they eat them too. So this has spread all across the South amongst the First Nations people. For Meckham, Hannah for take enough of the white kind of crack corn and soak them good overnight in Hannah pingi, so till the next day they'll clean. To make it, Hannah for take enough of the white kind of cracked corn, you must take a sufficient amount of the white sort of cracked corn and soak them good, soak it well overnight in Hana pingi. A pingi is a cooking pot. It's one of those African words. Sotel. Sotel means until the next day done clean. A bit earlier on today, I mentioned expressions in African languages that say the same thing, except that the language is different. And in so many African languages, the word for dawn or daybreak means the day is clean. In other words, the sun is started to shine. It's brightening up. And so if you say in Seminole, the day done clean, it means it's daybreak, it's daylight again. So you're soaking this corn in water all night until the next morning. Must put little lie in that water for make it as sourish little bit. Now, must means you must. Pit is put. Lily lie. Lily lie means a little bit of lye. Lye is caustic soda. It's the nasty stuff. Some people have used it even for straightening hair and doing all kinds of things, but it's very caustic. It burns you if you get it on your skin, so be careful. But you put a little bit into the water for make it tan sourish little bit. So you've added a tiny bit of flavor into the corn. Today, honey can go buy the lye from the store. You can go and buy the lye, caustic soda, they're the same thing. But before, instead of that, the old timer them been soak ashes from the fire and use that water a day. And this is true. In the old days, the way people would make lye is to soak the ash from the fire in water and then strain off the water and use that because it would have this this soda stuff in it. Tikya huna nat chue da stobod lai pon huna kin. Tikya means be careful. You na chue, you do not throw away that stobod lai. Stobod means you bought it in the store. Pon huna kin. Don't throw or spill, could also chue could mean spill. That lye on your skin. Iam bun hana good. It will burn you well and left some powerful web day and leave some powerful web. Web is like a mark on your skin there. Next thing for do, the for drain off that water and wrench them good and put some more clean water there. The next thing to do is to drain off that water and rinse it good, the greens, not the greens, the corn, and put some more clean water there and boil it for about 10 good minutes over fire. Of course, you're gonna boil it over fire. Are they done cool? After it has become cool, drain off the water and put the corn in one mortar and grind them good and put the corn in a, now one doesn't just mean number one, it can also mean a or an. Mortar is a mortar and grind them good. So tell it the most ton of kush until it has almost turned to kush. Kush means something like mush. Kosish one mine. In other words, not too smooth, but coarse. There are some people that tower for the smooth kind. The coarse one mind, although some people the tower. Tower means to hunger for or be greedy for. The smooth kind, the smoother kind, the finer kind. And some yellow people again, the fix a more looser yet. And some other people again, and some other people again, yet again, the fix them. Fix it more looser yet, even more watery, and they take them like a drink, and they take it as though it were a drink. They take it like a drink. Okay. Take dara mash. So take that mashed up corn and warm them up and chook them and chook black pepper in a tip of salt day. So take that mash, warm it up, and chook means to throw in black pepper and a tip of salt and a little bit of salt. They if hana now want for eat them sweet. If you do not want to eat it sweet, if hana want them sweet, chook little cinnamon and sugar on top of them. If you want the sweet kind of safki, throw in some cinnamon and sugar, or try them along with syrup and try it along with syrup. That sweet kind tastes same like a what I'm called toli. That sweet sort of safki is like what they call toli, except for that hana fatat with the fili and not with the cracked corn. So fili is another way of preparing corn. And if you're going to make toli, you need the fili to start with. And those are our two texts for today. You will see, once you see the language, you can figure out what the English words are that they come from, but do not make the mistake of thinking this is English, because it's a different language, and what word may mean one thing in English could mean an entirely different thing in Seminole. So don't approach learning this as though you're learning a sort of English, because you're not. Okay?
Dr. Hancock,
Uh-huh.
I did want to mention back when you were talking about the words, and I think it was like chickabode. Um,
Can't hear you.
the board when you were talking about the words at the beginning, the chickabode, I think, like you the one where you put the rock underneath the board.
Oh, the checkerboard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we were coming up, we call that a springboard.
A springboard. Yeah, that's what it is. I'll put that in the word list. Thanks for that.
Because we used to do that.
Anything else?
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Are we going to be taking any quizzes?
Ha.
Oh.
Yeah, but a quiz is something we ought to do, is have a quiz, but the actual fact is, Amadou, with all of the people, dozens of people who are signed up, nobody is, well, the few faithful who show up once a month on Zoom, nobody is coming back with questions or sending me samples of their own efforts to write something in Seminole. There's got to be a lot more input from the people signed up for the sessions. And if I had a quiz, I'm not sure that anybody would take the quiz. We got to get a bit more enthusiasm out there.
Okay.
We would take
Any
the quiz,
suggestions?
just wouldn't pass the quiz.
Huh?
We would take the quiz, we just would not pass the quiz.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that that's true. But I really encourage everybody, and I know that although we've got 5 or 6 people right now exchanging, the sessions do go out to everybody, but the problem is those other people cannot ask questions of me and of the text, because it's not a two-way exchange. It would be ideal if way more people would join us once a month, like today, and then we could ask questions and progress in that way.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how many lessons we have. If we get through, say, 10 lessons, I'm just putting it out there. For those of us, I think I've only missed one class, last one. But for those of us who have been following, right, and then we get to the end of the course,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only maybe 5 of us. What happened next? What happens next?
Well, if COVID permits, by September, we should plan to go to Brackett and speak nothing but Seminole to each other. And if you don't speak Seminole, there are horrible penalties, painful penalties. Okay?
That's it, Wendy. It's on.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I'm doing what I can here,
True.
and the feedback is less than stellar.
Yes. So, you know, what we were really, Gabriel, I had started doing like a word of the day. And I think something that we can do is send that out through our email listserv to everybody. Because I don't think we have as many people on our Facebook page as we do in our listserv. So that can be something that we send out daily to just engage people more, is those word of the days that we've had. Like, we can do what we've started with and then just continue from there. And maybe we can break into smaller groups. And I know this is something you suggested at the beginning. So maybe 2-3 people get into small little groups and start talking to each other. And then we meet up once a month just to check our progress.
Well, if we cannot meet in person, we can certainly text each other in
Yeah.
Seminole.
Yeah.
And I should tell you, there will be several more sessions. And some of the stories coming up are really interesting stories, which you will enjoy. And some more recipes too.
Yeah. Love the rest.
Now, let me ask whether Seminoles ever cooked hopping John.
No, by the time I came around, we were actually just talking about atole today outside. I have one of my aunts from Big Lake. She remembered her great grandmother putting tons of raisins in the atole. But Hoppin' John, I think we consider that like a Southern dish, because I didn't ever eat it growing up, but I learned about it when I moved to Georgia.
So it's a state race food.
Yes.
Yeah,
Would it be
that was my impression. I didn't
Yeah.
want to add it to the recipes because I never encountered it as a Seminole dish.
Yeah. But atole is definitely a staple. We all ate that growing up. Yeah, I think we all had grandmothers who were responsible for feeding us, and they made sure that, you know, we ate those dishes.
Well, there's a few more recipes that may ring a bell. Phil, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Doc Ian. And I'm feeling Professor Amadou, and I don't think he's telling where the slaves is hiding. I don't believe that. But he's making a point. I was wondering, would it be possible, and could it be a learning experience if you did a verbal translation quiz with Professor Amadou and broke it down to us now? Because he's saying he's ready. And I know I'm not. A few sentences, maybe even.
In Seminole.
Well, Professor Amadou, I think he wants a quiz.
No, there's only one professor here. That's Ian, Dr. Ian Hancock.
Yeah, well, but you have, you know, you have that language plasticity that Ira Berlin speaks about, and you have been keeping up. And I notice when I hear people do translating, say someone speaking Spanish and they have a translator behind, you know, I learned something. And so if that Ian gave you a verbal exam or said, say this, and then you said it. And even in his praising or correction of you, I think it might be a learning experience. But does anybody agree with me?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think Amadou should be the example. He should be the one. Go ahead. Give him 5 words to say.
But it wouldn't be fair because I grew up speaking a version of Gola Coast, Upper Guinea Coast Creole, Creole language. I speak Creole from Sierra Leone. I grew up speaking that. I do understand all the words that are from the West Africa, West Rice Coast, the Upper Guinea Coast. But when the words get into Angola and Congo, I know zilch like you. So um, I may not be a good example. I think someone like, is it Gabriel? Is he here? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes,
I'm here.
he's here.
Yeah, someone like Gabriel, who's he's delved into this thing, I can tell, and Wendy, they would be better examples to be a representation or representative of the pool. But I don't mind. It's just that mine will be skewed a little bit. That's what I'm trying to raise.
Yes, well, class valedictorian Amadou Masali, we want to follow you. Don't start running like a crab on us or backing up. You brought this up. It would be wonderful to hear you and Doc Ian show us, even in that language that you have, that would expand our learning.
Okay, I don't run away from challenges.
We can certainly, Amadou and I can, we talk Creole to each other all the time. But it has to be, bye-bye. My sister-in-law is visiting, come wave.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. See you next time.
Okay.
We are moving into an area that's not so much about language, but about identity and the particular link that exists between Sierra Leone and Gullah Geechee and Afro-Seminole. And we haven't talked a lot about that. It's kind of glaringly obvious if you look at the language, but perhaps Amadou and I could work out some sort of discussion to show really how close Afro-Seminole is to Sierra Leone Creole. And then we could explore why that should be, because Seminoles have a dual identity. I think back in the first session, I mentioned the Garifuna people in Belize. The Garifuna are genetically Black, but ethnically Native American. And the same can be said about Afro-Seminoles, genetically Black, ethnically Native American. So it's interesting to pull out the threads of history to account for what still remains. And we could bring Gabriel into the discussion as a Mexican American who also have a Native American strain in their identity. How do you deal with that? Do you have to even deal with it? Is it simply, oh, that's interesting, and that's it? Oh, that's an interesting thing about our history. In what ways does it show in day-to-day life? we're getting away from language in those sorts of discussions. But I think if we're talking about Afro-Seminoles, these are fundamental issues, which I would not participate in, but I would listen to everybody else discussing those things. But Amadou and I could certainly demonstrate how similar the Creoles are, given the hundreds of years of separation, the hundreds of thousands of miles of separation, and yet, if I wanted, let me give you one example. Amadou,
Yes, sir.
you did
I
it?
did. I did, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm gonna say in Seminole, I'm gonna say Anode Yeri Hana. Now, how would you say that in Creole?
I know the Yeri Una.
You hear that? Just one simple sentence. I'm gonna say Wise Hana de.
I would say in Creole, Usai Unadi.
Yeah. That means where are you? That in itself is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And maybe we could work that up into another sort of session. Something I want to do and make happen, and it would take teamwork, is have maybe a 3-week summer school in Brackett in the schoolhouse. We could get some money to do that. It probably wouldn't even need any money, just if we could spare the time. But what a lot of fun that would be for us to be together in person and spend time talking to each other only in Seminole, meanwhile barbecuing and enjoying ourselves. It'd be wonderful.
But I also, sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I also think along the lines we just spoke those two sentences.
Yeah.
Maybe there should be an English speaking person also. So, for example, I'm just figuring something out in my head here. You say one sentence in Afro-Seminole Creole. I say the same thing in Sierra Leone's Creole, and someone says it in English, and this is recorded, right? I think people will learn a lot from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right.
But why would we need Creole in there? Why would I need to be there? I mean, can it not just be Seminole and English? Is it also just to show the similarities? Is that what we're doing also?
Yes, except that if we are pushing the Rice Coast connection and the roots connection, you're right that may not be of overwhelming interest, but I think it's people want to know their roots.
Mm-hmm.
And the more details you can fill in about who you are and where you come from and why you talk the way you do. And it would be wonderful to even have some interviews. And this is where Wendy and Sarah can be recording conversations from the oldest people who are still with us. They don't have to be speaking Seminole. They can just be talking about what it was like as kids at school and what did the white teacher say about the way they spoke and that sort of thing. And what do they remember? What sort of, because looking at the recipes, and I've been concentrating on recipes, those old recipes used peach quat. A peach quat was the empty can of tinned peaches that was kept as a measurement. A beer can. A beer can was an empty can of beer used as a measurement in the kitchen. People would use empty cans as measurements in their cooking. To me, this is interesting because if you read a modern recipe, it tells you to take 3 ounces of this and 4 ounces of that and half a cup of this. People didn't do that. I still don't do that when I cook, but a cookery book gives you these little precise amounts. But back then, people didn't have cookery books. They just used their common sense and you know, an empty can of evaporated milk or something, because it would be a set measurement in the kitchen. I would love to hear more stories about that.
Mhm.
And what about, speaking of talking to old people, I don't have any, I never got any folk tales from anybody, like old animal tales, for example. Gullah Geechee is chock-a-block full of animal tales, which actually are life lessons if you understand that the nature of the tales. They are teaching, there are ways to teach behavior. They're like Aesop's stories. I don't have any of those, but there surely are some.
Yeah.
I did mention to Sarah that Miss Best told me when she was still alive, she did tell me a story about people, Seminoles escaping, and they were taken prisoner and kept as prisoners in a hut of some sort, but they did some kind of magic and shrunk themselves down tiny so that they could crawl out of a hole in the roof and escape. And she let me tape record that, and somebody took that and recorded over it, and I do not have that story, and it was all in Seminole. So the people who know those stories are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. And so it's to the younger people to do what they can while they can. All right.
Quick question. You said the last name was Best, or was that their
Yeah, Miss Best.
Miss Best? Do you know the first name?
I did. I probably have it somewhere in my notes. Why?
Okay. Oh, like I said, introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Jatique Gunn. I am the granddaughter of John July. So you actually spoke to us years ago. I was maybe in middle school. And Gail Poindexter, I'm not sure if you recall her, but Gail, yeah, Gail. So Gail, my mother's name is Dina Booker.
Oh,
So,
I know Gail.
At heart, yeah, Gail, yes.
And her brother.
She had 3 brothers.
Yeah,
Buddy.
He passed away.
Mhm.
Yeah, I knew Gail real well. In fact, she came to Washington with us.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. So Gail actually raised my mom when her mother passed away at 17. And so
She
really
was in a
integrated.
wheelchair, right?
She was not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Miss Best that I know was in a wheelchair, but she's the same Best that you're talking about, I'm pretty sure.
Similar Best. Okay. I was trying to see. It's so crazy, all of the names and the.
I remember there was a
yeah.
Shelly Best, but I think that was a man, right? Shelly?
Yes, Sheldon was Gail's brother.
Sheldon,
Okay.
yes. Now you're bringing back memories.
Perfect.
Oh
But yeah.
my. Yeah, we're just losing everybody.
Yes, unfortunately. And I feel like that was going to be my other question with us, trying to reclaim the language and understanding the identity. Like how best can we do that to get people that are more my age involved, and the younger generation?
The problem is that the non-Seminole world has so many attractions, and people will ask themselves, really, what is the point of learning a language that I could never use with anyone else except a tiny group of people? It would have to rest upon a deep sense of self-emotion. There really is no reason, let's face it, there's no reason to learn anything that doesn't affect your day-to-day life. It's pure to learn any other language. You're balancing off the practical use of knowing it, and putting out the energy to learn the language. And what good is it going to do me? It's not going to do you a lot of practical good. It's not going to make you money, but it can feed your soul like nothing else can. But you have to be able to share it. To do that all by yourself and sit in a lonely room and say, I've learned how to speak Seminole. So what? Who else knows and who else cares? Only other people like yourself. But if you don't know your history and you don't know your language, you just become a plain old African American. Right? When I was still teaching, students would come up to me in class, Black students, and they would say, I want you to know I'm not just an African American, I'm a Creole. They were from Louisiana, right? They weren't Seminoles. Louisiana, Black people from Louisiana are Creoles, and they see themselves as distinctly different from any other kind of Black American. This is true of Afro-Seminoles too. But once you lose the little bits of you that make you what you are, you really just end up being African American. If you're cool with that, good, no pressure. But if it means something to you, you're carrying a legacy forward that if you don't, your children won't know a damn thing, and it's gone, right? Something precious has gone, it's died. This is where it has to be. Does that make sense?
It does. I just want to kind of figure out any way that I can help and get involved and maybe try to get people in my age group more invested and involved in, continuing our language and our identity, because it's so beautiful and it's such a melting pot, and it's really important that we maintain it and keep it alive.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's
I
really
agree. And Dr. Ian, if I must say, from a Sierra Leonean perspective, it means a lot to us too, as Sierra Leoneans, to be able to see part of our language, our culture existing in this country for a couple of hundred years now. It's special to us. Not every Sierra Leonean may have the same commitment or passion that I have, but I can tell you it is important to Sierra Leoneans that we maintain this history that has been here for 250 plus years. We can't afford to lose it now, yeah? So some of that is within us too, as Sierra Leoneans or Africans. Yeah. It may be
Let me-
selfish, but yeah, I look at it from that perspective, and part of the reason why I'm here with you guys talking, because we must keep this. We must keep this. And Black Seminoles, we can speak Afro-Seminole Creole to Gola. In fact, I think because Gola has been sort of watered down,
Mhm.
this Afro-Seminole Creole can bring some authenticity back to God. It may not happen in my lifetime, but these things are possible.
I would jump in really quick too. And I'm sorry, I missed the woman's name who spoke earlier, and I apologize for that. But I would say the fact that you're even doing the lessons is something that can be done, because there are so few people that having even one more person learn the language is going to go a long way towards preservation, as well as the work that Wendy and Gabrielle are doing. I think that it will catch on. It'll just take time. It's not easy, and I think that people, until they see more people doing it, I think it will take more time to catch on. But I think it's a great effort for what it's worth.
Sarah, can you tell Dr. Hancock what you have in the chat? I don't think he's seen that. Those possibilities about restarting.
Sure. So when there was the discussion about the identity and linguistics, I was sorry, Wendy, I'm volunteering you. I think it'd be interesting to have Wendy in the conversation as well, because part of the reason why we're all here today learning these lessons is because there were Seminole Negroes who were living in plain sight, and that's how the language was actually preserved and how it was protected. And so it'd be very interesting to have somebody from the Bracket community who's raised up, with that kind of history, to be involved in this kind of conversations as well. And then my other comment was about almost restarting the lesson. So I've caught up by looking at the Zoom links, but I see how I missed a lot of real-time learning by not being able to do something interactive. So even if Dr. Hancock wasn't able to reboot or restart the lessons as well, I do think that if people could go back and start from lesson 1 with some assistance, that would be really helpful as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it would be great for anyone who wants to go back and restart to, maybe get in smaller groups and start together, so that there is progression, even if it's just only one other person. Because I know having Gabriel, and I feel like I volunteered him to be my partner almost, but I know that having him to bounce ideas off of is great. And I think it just is a benefit. There are no drawbacks at all, having someone to kind of, go back and forth with and figure things out together. And I think he had his hand raised earlier with the question. I don't know if you still do.
Bill,
Oh.
Dr. Hancock, would you speak to the group briefly about Washington and the Folk Life Festival? The reason is because you mentioned that an ancestor had accompanied you there of Miss Gunn. And when I was in Suriname with the Maroons there, I even met a participant. He was a lawyer, Libretto, and would you explain a little bit about the Folk Life Festival in Washington?
who, me? You asking me?
Yes, you,
You
Ian.
were there. You were there. Of everyone here, I don't know nobody else that was there, Doc.
Well, the Folk Life Festival is on all the time, but that particular one was the Maroon Festival,
Exactly.
and that was incredible. We went there. There was Dub. There was Miss Charles. It was a Gail.
Alice Faye
Gail
was there.
There was Choach was there.
George Isola, yeah.
It was out of sight. It was fantastic, and I don't know what else to tell you except I got a new sense for the first time of the extent of the Black Hispanic world.
Hmm.
You know, we live here in the United States. We don't think about the Black population south of the border. It is vast, it is vibrant, it's huge, but we never hear about it. And it was so interesting to meet Maroons from Suriname, from Jamaica, and speak the Creoles. Really, Creole is a Maroon language in a way. It brings people together. We spent a lot of time in the evenings just comparing notes, language notes. And I don't know what else to tell you, Fix. We also went to there was a folklife festival in Atlanta that we went to as well. It was very interesting, and Doug was there, and some others. And this was the first time in Atlanta that Gullah people from the East Coast came to Atlanta, and Seminoles from here went to Atlanta. And after, it was the first time in 148 years that the Gullah Geechee people and the Afro-Seminole people met and talked to each other. And I remember, somebody said to me, I asked, it might have been Ethel, probably was Ethel. And I said, how was it hearing them talk Gullah? And she said, well, it sounded as though they were trying to speak Seminole, but not very well.
I think that's very interesting for me because in my family, we had relatives who married the people from South Carolina, from the Sea Island. And so in Fort Lauderdale, we were the Hams. And so when we would go to Fort Lauderdale to visit the Fort Lauderdale Hams and Lausa, and my like they all have the same names, like Ethel. You mentioned Ethel, like my aunt Ethel, and these different people, Margaret and Othello. And they would go to Fort Lauderdale to visit the Hams, and Lausa was the daughter of a very wealthy man when she was living in the Sea Islands. He was a wealthy black man. But to me, you could not understand anything they were saying. You know, I mean, it was like listening to, I mean, and the children got that kind of speech too. So, but they're like the Cuban children here. The longer they stayed here, they could, kind of lose some of that that speech, but it was still in their speech. Even when they got older, it was still kind of, doing something to their speech. Some of them, like the guys especially, they didn't really ever, you know, learn the language. I mean, they never got rid of that Gullah Geechee stuff. But for me, coming from the big city of West Palm Beach, I was like, where are these people coming from? You can't understand a word they say. They were beautiful people, though. That was the thing. All of them just kissed all over you. You got kisses from everybody. It was a very loving, loving culture. Very loving.
Can I ask you, do you have any impressions about the survival of Gullah in Florida?
No, because those were the only people I knew. It was one of the like my that side of the family, which came from not the Seminole side. That was the grandfather's side, who came from South Carolina Sea Islands,
Uh-huh.
and they were all from there. So the only people I knew were those people. The only South Carolina people I knew were those relatives in Fort Lauderdale.
I think I
The ones in
mentioned,
West Palm Beach were very modernized.
uh-huh. Do you know Professor Tomitro Hopkins?
Yes, yes, of course.
She would know, I guess, of whatever Gullah is still spoken up around St. Augustine and up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I listen, my acquaintance with the entire culture having is that I knew my grandmother and like I was telling people, my mother used to call her that old Indian. So, that's, how you have to realize it's mother-in-law sort of thing. So, but my association with either one of the two cultures has not been totally good or bad, but it
Mm.
just was not, I was not brought up as any of those cultures. I was brought up, like any uh, bougie or poor moving toward trying to be a bougie black person in America.
Mm.
So that when when I had to become, like assume the responsibility of this culture and what it meant, because my cousin died and left me with it. That was when I became involved, even though I had done some history in 1977. I had done some research at the University of Iowa on it, and I was appalled at how the story was not more told and better told by the Black historians who were writing the story. But it wasn't what I was studying, it was just a part of my American Studies program, and I decided to study it as a part of my Florida history,
Uh-huh.
something that I was doing, a project that I was doing. But my own, I unfortunately, I didn't realize, you don't know what you're growing up in. Like
True.
when I was with my grandmother, and, I didn't know that it would be good if I really did kind of push her, give me some more stuff on those, like the Native Americans would come in and sit with her on the front porch of her house in their little outfits and things, and leave their huckleberries. They would have these balls, and they would leave them and hide them under the porch, and till they went into West Palm Beach and come. Well, that none of that was really, it was just like, wow, those people. I just really, it was not culturally a part of my experience as that's your culture, Wallace. No,
Uh,
it was not.
well, all right. Well, it's believe it or not, 6:45. This has been a long session, and I think it's time for me to go and have some supper. So everybody down for a month from now?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ian.
I
Yes,
think there
sir.
will be a lot of discussions in the meantime.
I will practice.
Yeah. Put a rocket under some of those folks out there. And Big Finn, are you still with us? I guess not. All right. Good night, everybody. I'll see you in a month.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Good night.